Our next guest does not need any introduction because he is, well, Walter Murch.
Thank you, thank you. So this was, I'm sorry I was late. As Michael said, I've been trailing fumes of kerosene across the United States, and but we're here, and this is a little film that was supposed to take 6 months that turned into a 4-year odyssey with stops and starts in that 4-year period. You've seen the trailer, the teaser? So you know kind of what it's about, which is the MI6/CIA coup in Iran in 1953 that shoved democracy off the cliff, installed the dictatorship of the Shah, or the monarchy of the Shah that became a dictatorship. And I'm going to show a few clips from the film and talk about some of the process. It's a film that welcomes the audience into the filmmaking process. So there's a reason for that, which is a mysterious MI6 agent made an interview in 1983 for a Granada British television series called End of Empire. And he spilled the beans. And MI6 found out about it and yanked him, and they had to recut the film, and we found a stray thread, a little evidence of a transcript of that interview, and we began to follow that. So what I'd like to play now is just a 5-minute section of finding that document and what it led to.
Look at this. A bag full of stuff from a basement in Paris. What you see here are the research notes and transcripts and interview notes made by the production team of End of Empire. British diplomats who were involved in the coup, Foreign Office officials, possibly MI6, I see a CIA name here. Who knows what combing through these papers will throw out for us. These words, these people have not been heard or seen for over 34 years. These look like actual working copies of transcripts, interview transcripts. Very old school, the cut and paste school of structuring a film. They've cut the bits that they liked to edit into the film. Derbyshire tapes. And you've come across the name of Norman Derbyshire?
Sure. Yeah, he's named in the Wilbur history, and he's the one who works with Wilbur in Nicosia.
Okay.
To put the plan together.
So he's high-level MI6.
Right, and someone with Iran expertise.
This is amazing. They've used quite a bit of him because there's so many chunks that have been cut out. But I don't recall watching End of Empire and seeing a Derbyshire in it. Excellent, if we want the coup in detail, and even if not. Why did they select bits of interview from him, cut it out, paste it into a script, probably edit it into the film, but he didn't make the final cut. He's not in the finished film. In a remarkable stroke of luck, we've discovered that the British Film Institute archive holds older unused footage from the End of Empire Iran episode. After years of intense negotiation, we break through the red tape and financial barriers and finally get access. 36 cans of film, 520 minutes of interview, among which we hope to find Norman Derbyshire. And it's recording. Great. We digitized the entire collection of End of Empire given to us by the BFI. We did not find Norman Derbyshire. This is End of Empire's cast list. And number 1 is Derbyshire. Gets a tick and an asterisk. Derbyshire features here. Plan conceived by Derbyshire and Woodhouse. Derbyshire was the undercover man. Sam Fowler worked under Derbyshire.
Norman Derbyshire.
British Embassy, staff photograph, Tehran, class of 1952. And this is Norman Derbyshire. Looking very much the cool undercover spy. Derbyshire would have been 29 when this photograph was taken. He was born on the 1st of October 1924, and he died on the 17th of June 1993. His CIA counterpart was Stephen Mead. We found his kind of film, even though he too was cut out of the finished film. Stephen Mead on Iran. This is what End of Empire production team thought of Stephen Mead. A young 69, hatchet-faced, like a bit part player in a B-movie thriller, and above all, good. This is brilliant. Wow. Your British counterpart was in fact blank. Could you tell me something about the man blank?
Your British counterpart was in fact Norman Derbyshire. Could you tell us something about the man, Norman Derbyshire?
Oh, I didn't know him at all before I met him.
What kind of a man was blank?
What kind of a man was Norman Derbyshire?
Derbyshire has been wiped out, cleaned out, everywhere. But amazingly, I've now found an identical Derbyshire interview, uncut. One Norman Derbyshire original interview cut up, and then a Derbyshire interview intact. So this Derbyshire interview, which is exactly the same, Derbyshire. Here, Derbyshire has been blanked out. This hasn't been cut, which means all the bits that they selected for the film and cut out of this one are in this one.
Afshar Tus was one of the few generals who was very pro-Mossadegh, tough-minded guy. So Mossadegh appointed him chief of police. And for the anti-Mossadegh army officers, he was a bête noire.
Police Chief Afshar Tus claimed to have a list of Iranian officials who were conspiring with the Americans to unseat Mossadegh, and he was going to publicize this.
This just began the twists, because here's a guy admitting point blank that he was involved in the assassination of the chief of police of Tehran in order to get the coup going, to destabilize the government. So MI6, we think, there's still lots of mysteries. The film ends with questions. We're pretty sure that MI6 found out about this and yanked him. And they came to the producers of the film and says, you can't show this kind of stuff. We contacted all of the people who were involved in the film, 80%, 90% who are still alive today, and they all kind of said, no, I don't remember anything about this guy. No, I don't think this is this, and this is that. The one person who did remember was the cameraman. And he said, yeah, we shot this interview on February 15th, 1983, in a room in the Savoy Hotel in London overlooking the Thames. And that began to unravel things. And we hoped somehow that we would find something, or some trace of this. Maybe somebody had an old VHS tape. And so we did a preemptive strike, I guess you'd call it.
Reading Derbyshire's interview, you get a sense that he's trying to restore credit where credit is due. He's a
talking
bit
to the
pissed
head
off
of
that the
MI6.
Americans walked away with the credit for the coup.
Well, there may be your explanation. Vanity of vanities, saith the preacher. All is vanity. We all like recognition for what we've done. And maybe that was the reason he blew the gasket. He was fed up with being told that this was the Americans. He wanted a good old British view, that he wanted them to get some credit for it. That may be it. I don't know. As I say, I don't think I know the man. It will be another nail in the coffin of a view of the Official Secrets Act, that you can just use it to save you from embarrassment. There's absolutely no reason whatever under the sun why that shouldn't be published.
Norman Derbyshire, take one. What you're about to see here as the team sets up at the Savoy is the result of us not being able to find the Derbyshire can of film. We hit a brick wall. We hit a wall of silence and denial about Norman Derbyshire, so we've resorted to bringing his words to life. Oh, there it is. Okay. Ray Fiennes is about to speak Derbyshire's words recorded back in 1983, telling us things the British didn't want anyone to hear. And these are the bits that the people who made the original documentary loved, which is also what we love.
Sorry, I'm getting drawn into the...
Just imagine how I felt when I came across it. It was one late night in the office.
Good morning.
Good morning. Morning.
Walter, great. Walter, fantastic. Yes.
Ah,
Here we are.
This is Humphrey.
Hi.
I'm today's cameraman.
Good. That's all right. I can
you,
take it easy.
As you know, filming against windows is.
Well, we had a policy for that whole series.
Yeah.
The whole, because I did about half the end of Empire. As far as we could, we would shoot the windows in order to
show the different
sort of authenticity about the background. I think it's very good.
Have you seen the footage of the script supervisor, was she?
No, she was the researcher. So that...
With the producer, and they suddenly go weird and they don't remember him and they all go vague.
Well, I was surprised that they didn't.
It's so incendiary what he's saying. I mean, even then you would have
Well,
thought...
I was surprised because I have a memory of being a little bit astonished at what he was saying.
Yeah.
He was straight up and down saying this stuff, and it was quite amazing.
Everybody good? Everyone back in your positions, please. That looks great. Yeah. You're making good time. That's very good. Yes, you're running like that. Yeah, that's great. Right, okay. So, Mr. Derbyshire is about to tell us the story of the coup like it's never been told before. Right? Everyone good? Okay. When did you first go out to Iran?
I went out in 43, 47 period, first of all as an army officer in SOE. And I was there from the end of 43 to the middle of 47, and from late 49 to 52 when Mossadegh threw us out and broke off relations.
The little detour here through the analog world, this is me on Apocalypse Now trying to find a Smitchy at the bottom of a trim bin. There's a reason for me telling you this, you obviously know all this stuff, but it's an interesting quirk that 1,000 feet of picture and sound, which lasts in 35 millimeter, lasts 11 minutes. But if you put those on a scale, they weigh 11 pounds. So 35 millimeter film cost you, it was £1 a minute for what we were doing. So Apocalypse Now had 14,000 blah, blah, blah minutes of work print, which is 7 tons of work print. Coup 53 had 31,920 minutes of work print, which if it was in 35 millimeter would be 16 tons of stuff. So obviously that would have been impossible to wrangle. So the only way you could have made this film was digital stuff, which isn't in the film anymore. And this is circumstantial evidence. Was he in the film or not? And this involves his CIA counterpart, Stephen Meade. So let's just take a look at that scene.
The great thing about analog, which is what we're looking at here, is that there is a record of what has been used and what has not been used. And when we work digitally, there is no trace of where we might have cut something. In the old days, a piece of film, you actually had to cut that piece out and use it, and if you later decided not to use it, you then put it back in the master roll from which it came. But there is a trace, fingerprints, that say this shot was in the film at one time. There you can see the tape. That line across the bottom of the frame is a piece of Scotch tape. So what I've done here is identified the clips that were used in End of Empire at one point. This clip was used, this clip was used, this clip was used, this and this. And here is Allison, 35 years ago, asking Stephen Meade about Norman Derbyshire.
What kind of a man was Norman Derbyshire?
Cut.
Norman Derbyshire was a very competent individual. He had a lot of experience. He spoke Farsi fluently, French, and what other languages I don't know. But he was a very capable operator.
And cut. The rules of the game are that if somebody talks about somebody, you have to have reference to that person. So we have this very long transcript of an interview with Norman Derbyshire, which has been cut up. And here we have a roll of work print of Stephen Meade talking about Derbyshire, which has been similarly cut up. When Derbyshire was removed, Stephen Meade had to be removed as well. So that begs the question, what happened to Norman Derbyshire?
So that's, it turned out, because, and I mean, I knew Rafe from English Patient, and we had that problem of, we've got this text, but how are we going to bring it to life? And we thought, well, we'll get an actor come in and read it, and then we'll just show the text. But then coming back from lunch one day, I thought, let's get Rafe. And so I, out of the blue, phoned him. He'd asked me a couple of months earlier if I was available, because he was doing his Rudolf Nureyev film. So he was kind of, I had access to him, and I was thinking about him. And he was up for it, you know. He was immediately intrigued. I think partly because he's the guy, you know, he plays M in the Bond films, and here he gets to be sort of the channel, the sort of the spiritual channel of this real life guy who, you know, admitted in being the mastermind of the coup. And, you know, down to grisly details of how somebody was tortured and murdered in Iran in the spring of '53. So he came in, as you saw, and did his amazing Rafe bit. The whole thing, we shot everything in about an hour and 15 minutes. And he takes us through. He becomes the narrator of the film, essentially, but this is the guy. Later on, we were able to contact members of the Derbyshire family, and they cooperated with us, and they sent that photograph that you saw earlier, but also some photographs of him at the time of the coup. And so here's Rafe, age 29, and this is Norman Derbyshire, age 29. So, you know, there's enough of a family resemblance there that, you know, which we had absolutely no idea. We only got the photographs of him like a week or two before we had to, you know, essentially lock the picture. So it's all very exciting, and now that the film is finished, more things coming out of the woodworks about all of this. We had a screening on Sunday in London 2 weeks ago where John le Carré was in the audience. He knew Derbyshire, it turned out. The members of the Mossadegh family, the grandchildren of Mossadegh, who are now in their 80s, he's the prime minister who was shoved off the cliff. They were in the audience, Rafe was in the audience, and 11 members of the Derbyshire family were in the audience, including Mrs. Derbyshire. He was married 3 times. This was the second wife. They got divorced in the early 80s, shortly before he gave this interview. So it's, as they say, a kind of movable feast that things were happening as I was trying to lock the picture. Huge stuff was happening. Then you had to kind of adjust yourself and allow these things to get incorporated into the film. Okay, good. So I'm going to end what I have to say, and any questions or anything. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. You're the man.
Yeah.
Did this start out as a documentary of the discovery of all this information?
No, we didn't know anything about that. Did this start out as a discovery? No, we didn't know about it. It was, as I said kind of at the beginning, it was just originally going to be a sort of 4 days of the coup, like in 3 days of the Condor. This was 4 days of the coup in August of 1953. But once we started to dig, these shards of mysteries and stuff that had been deliberately suppressed started to emerge, and the more that emerged, you know, it more and more stuff started coming out. And so you just have to kind of navigate that, plus the fact that we kept running out of money, so there were I was off the film for 9 months in that 4-year period, and then we started up again at a different location, so we had to move the whole editing room stuff, and then we had to stop again for 6 months, and you know, it's that kind of, this is a completely independently financed documentary. No official people would touch this because they were, I don't know, they were scared of it, or they didn't believe it, or something. So, you know, this is done with small money contributions to keep it going. Right. Yeah, so how did we decide when to stop doing this? We ran out of money. You know, and time, and we'd been rejected by 22 festivals, you know, the Cannes, Sundance, Berlin, you know, the Hot Docs, you name it. And finally, Telluride said, okay, we'll show this film, and that kind of unlocked the magic box, and then we got accepted at the London Film Festival, and then in Vancouver, Mill Valley, and Middleburg in Virginia. Middleburg was an interesting screening because it's about an hour outside of Washington, D.C., and it's known as Spooksville because all the CIA guys who go there retire to Middleburg. It's a very nice, town in the rolling hills of Virginia. And we guessed about 10% of the audience was these CIA guys. And we met one of them who loved the film. He thought, he just loved all the research that we did into it. And I was given what's known as a challenge coin, which are these little things that says CIA on it, which is, I carry it around just in case. All right.
Walter Murch.
Thank you.